So this is the 6th video in my legacy project, but I realized that I already had a legacy project. I'll explain that after the animation. Well, like I said, I already had a legacy project of sorts. See, I've always liked cars. And one of the things I did, well, since I've had about 34 cars in my life, I decided that it'd be kind of fun to make drawings of all the cars, put them in a book with a little note so that grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever, could take a look through the book someday and say, wow, these are the cars that Grandpa or great-grandpa had. The interesting thing, I guess, about it is that for a guy who grew up with his teen years in the 60s, I never really had a thing for powerful cars. It just wasn't, muscle cars weren't my thing. I always liked oddball, strange cars. And probably about half my cars fit into that. So this book that I made, I'll thumb through it real quick. And then I'm gonna focus on two of them. I'm gonna focus on my first car, which was a 60s Volkswagen Beetle. And the last car, I'm not gonna say the last car, the most recent car I got on my 72nd birthday. And it's a 1972 Triumph Stag. So I'm gonna kind of bookend the cars in this first video. So this is a drawing I made of a 60s era VW Beetle. This one is actually a little later than the one that I actually had. Mine was a 64. This is a 60, I think 7, maybe. For those who never had the opportunity to have one of these, they are either the best worst car ever made or the worst best car ever made. By today's terms, they were horrible. No power steering, no air conditioning, no power brakes, no real heater motor, heater blower, but they were less complicated than a current riding lawnmower. You could do almost anything to keep them running. This one went 150,000 miles, then it needed a motor changed because it blew the motor up. And at the time, every town had a Volkswagen repair shop. They were specialists in Volkswagens. The one in Albuquerque that I went to when I blew the motor up had them sitting on shelves. They had motors. I said, I need a new motor. He said, okay, come back in an hour and a half. And he had the motor out, the new motor in, and I paid the man, and I was gone. The last little bit about the Volkswagen. I remember one night it was night, it was dark, and I was driving back to the base. I was about 40 miles away, and the red light came on the dashboard telling me that the alternator wasn't making volts anymore. I knew that the car, the little battery in it, wasn't gonna make 40 miles back to the base at nighttime. So I got out and took a look and realized that the fan belt broke. These things were just so simple to fix, simple to deal with. I didn't have a fan belt, but I had put, like a lot of young guys did, I put a lot of speakers in the car, and I ripped out speaker wires, made a tourniquet around the two pulleys, and started the car up and the light went out. It was making volts. Didn't last 40 miles. I had to do it once or twice more after that, but I did manage to get back to the base with speaker wire as the fan belt in the car. The next day I put a new fan belt in, and compare that to new cars. All you had to do is loosen that bolt. That pulley up top was 2-part pulley, so when you loosen the bolt, the pulley got wider and wider, so the belt can go on and off. You put a new belt on, tighten the nut back on again, and the pulley would close up, and the fan belt would kind of like grow to the outside of the pulley until it was the right tension. Doesn't get much easier than that. Well, this gets us to the Triumph Stag. In an earlier video, I told you about how I used to shuttle cars for Hertz to get them from the Towski area back to Albuquerque. That led into shuttling cars for banks, for lease returns. There was a bank in Albuquerque that would lease just about anything. And when the lease was up, they used to try and get the cars to Phoenix because there was a bigger market, I guess, for selling cars, or their headquarters for selling cars. So I had a deal with them where not every Monday, but several Mondays in my last couple of years in Albuquerque, they would tell me to pick up a car on Monday or Tuesday and to get it down to Phoenix by Sunday so that it would be there for the following Monday. And I used to drive the car all week, take it down to Phoenix on Saturday, fly back to Albuquerque, and I made like $0 for that. I mean, just a few bucks. But it was something to do on the weekend, and I get to drive a car all week long. One of the cars that I got to drive was a 1972 Triumph Stag, and it was cool. I liked it. And I thought, well, someday I would like to get one of these. Well, it went on for 50 years before I did that one. Well, this is the drawing I did of the Triumph Stag. I think it's probably one of the most beautiful cars I ever saw. I love having it. Don't drive it a lot, but even if I didn't drive it at all and just put it on a pedestal, I'd be proud to own it. The really weird thing about it is, with some 34 cars I've owned, this is the only one I've ever had that had a V8. It's a little sports car. Actually, it's kind of considered a Grand Tour, but it's a great little car. No, it's not a great little car. It's a fair car, but it's a great car. And it took me 50 years to own it, and I think it's not going anywhere. Now it's one of the four vehicles we still have. Well, I was gonna say I'll probably do more car videos, little short ones like this, because I've got some interesting ones that I've owned. But I'm not gonna say probably anymore. I'm definitely gonna do more, because some of them just really deserve a few minutes of time. Anyway, luckily nobody's probably gonna watch these, so I don't think I'll bore anybody who isn't into cars. But if you did watch, as usual, I'm sorry.